It's the one and only Africa Allah and the B-Team DJs by PlayMas.Today. Get familiar.
It's the one and only Africa Allah, and you are now tuned into Being Africa Allah right here on Discover Music Channel. And today, of course, you know, my dude is in the building.
You heard the whistle. Beneficial.
There we go. Today we are talking about
Mental health, y'all. We got, hip hop and mental health.
and we've been celebrating we've been celebrating hip hop for this entire season. And as we bring the season to a close, we want to talk about more pertinent issues related to the general population, mental health, and our mental stability. One thing that goes without saying across the board as a professional, you will always want to seem or be perceived as normal. A lot of the times, a lot of people in high performing industries and or positions often suffer from various forms of mental illness, anxiety, depression. Some people even suffer from serious mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolarism, etc. However, the press and the media, the people, social media, often attack people and not necessarily understand their disposition. So
You,
today we're going to talk about all of that and how
how it affects you as a consumer, how it affects people, period. I have to say this too, Africa. What's crazy is this. When we talk about mental health, it's not just with the industry or in business. It's personal with families. There's been a lot of misconceptions with people with mental health. It's so much to the point there a lot of people in inner cities don't go seek help because they're often thought of as crazy, or you may have a problem with you if you have certain things that's hereditary. And a lot of times, these things are hereditary. It's passed down from generation to generation. Sometimes, or it depends on the person's development and, how they keep themselves up. So at the end of the day, I just think that it's a huge topic that we need to stop avoiding.
that in itself, like, recently it's been okay for men. For a long time we never even thought of men, we never looked at men as having those type of issues, right?
You guys looked at, most people in society looked as black as men, especially black men, is supermen and pension folk like that. Nothing bothers us. A lot of people, women always think that men, just men in general. It's like, it's so funny. They say on Mother's Day and Children's Day, you look at the gifts, you see what they give us: yard tools, a coffee mug, the wackest gifts. I'm just saying because Mother's Day is a huge deal. They don't make a huge deal for Father's Day. Chris Rock said it best. He said the women, the only things that people love in this world is women, babies, and dogs. Men are loved conditionally. We're only loved as for as much as we do. The minute we done with that, then go our expiration date.
In the recent years, it's been more acceptable for men to come out and talk about their their struggles with depression and their mental illness, and just being more vulnerable in the public space.
I say that this new age is giving it a leeway, but it still has a long way to go. I mean, you see when a woman is raped, there's no big deal. There's a huge deal. There's a huge deal. There's the Me Too movement. Everybody going, but when same thing happens to guys, it's whatever. Get over it. You should like it. Like people who talk about R. Kelly, about what he did, which I am not excused and I do not agree with that behavior. But I would say this: the man had mental issues where he was raped by his aunt, in the early ages. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people are like, oh, that's a man's dream. Not when you're 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 14, 15. You barely know what your puberty is. It's not sorry. It's not the dream when you're that young because you barely know your organs, anything about it. So I'm not saying all men start at that age, some younger, but at the same point, even if 6 or 7 or 5 or whatever, nobody wants to be raped. So man or woman, I think that should be accepted more. We should start listening to both sides of the defense because there is a double standard.
And I think that those things need to be spoken about because a lot of the times improprieties inside the household turn into improprieties against siblings, cousins,
Yeah.
relatives. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's not. Sometimes the people that execute these acts are executing them unbeknown to them, unaware of the overall effects or how that's going to affect the other person. And then it becomes a part of their nature, you know.
Well, it depends on how you're right, but it all depends on how kids are raised. What is the moral values? What is the mentality of a lot of, you know, how adult are the adults that's raising the kids. Problem is, you have a lot of people who a lot of times people think when you become a parent that you know how everything goes, and you know there's no parent guide to parenting. There's no manual that you can really rely on with parenting. Every kid is his own individual case. Every kid has his own specific needs, and you as an adult need to be taught how to do that. If you was not nurtured as a child, and your mom didn't show you different things, or your dad didn't show you things, then of course you go around seeking it for your counterparts throughout life. That's why you see so many relationships not working, because you got women looking for daddies and men looking for mamas, and it just the cycle continues.
Let me ask you a question, and
Hmm.
we're speaking specifically to the rape
Sure.
thing because you brought up the rape thing with
Hmm.
R. Kelly, right?
Hmm.
So, speaking specifically to the rape issue, if a young woman or a young man is raped by an adult, we understand that that is rape, right?
No, not culture. Not when it's young men.
Listen to what I'm saying, regardless of what. We understand that anyone over a particular age
Oh
is
yeah,
considered rape,
we
right?
understand it. Yes.
However, when it is your cousin and you guys are both the same age,
Yeah.
they call it experimentation, right?
Wow.
Think about it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So if the cousin has experienced some type of improprieties towards them in the household, they're only reenacting that with
What
their
they see. Yeah. With the other person. Yeah.
right. So in that part, is it experimentation or is it a cry for help? And how do
No,
you
it's a
differentiate? How
no.
do you differentiate when a elder in the household catches you doing those things with another sibling and or cousin?
What I'm saying is, you know, at the end of the day, those type of situations, it seems like those has been passed down, and it's been a taboo issue. And a lot of urbans, whether it's black, Hispanic,
It's
Asian,
not
you
just
know,
it's not just
everybody. I'm
urban.
saying it's everywhere, but I'm saying, but a lot in the urban community, we shun upon that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times people, because it's, you know, you got this no snitching, you can't talk. You follow what I'm saying? So it's just that's where it differs in the urban community, and then it's acceptable. You know, we cry out. It's no one cares. You see, if somebody else, I hate to say it, but with colorism, just like for example, you call somebody in the hood, good luck a police show. You're in the suburbs, you call there in 5 minutes. So a lot of that.
You're running away from the topic. The issue at hand is if a child,
Mhm,
two siblings and or family members
mhm.
within the same age range touch each other or react to each other in a certain way, it is called experimentation. However, if that same thing were to happen with an uncle, aunt, niece, or whatever, it would be considered rape. How do we then address those things? Because if that's happening, that means that it's learned behavior. They had to have seen it somewhere.
That
Where did
means
they see it?
okay, it goes back to what I was just saying. Hereditary, trickle down. You have the same thing. They had to see it from somebody. Just like anything else. When you learn a curse word or anything, you learned it. You learned it either from your parent or some of your siblings or somebody around you. You learned it. You just didn't pick it up. These people who seen these acts, it's been in the family. I can't tell you how many times I hear people like, shh, you know what I'm saying? What goes on in the family, stay in the family. I've heard that in my family. I've seen that. That's why I've watched mental abuse in my family. I've watched people do all this type of things and then label it off. There's no, and sometimes, like I said, they will group us, but there's no experimentation when it comes to that. That's somebody's just plain guilty. You don't just, certain
Okay.
things you just don't do.
If I'm 5 years old and my cousin is 5 years old and we quote unquote experiment and we have no idea that what we're doing is
You have
wrong.
no idea. But see,
Listen,
that's different.
yeah, but no, it's not different because it has to be addressed.
Okay,
And
listen,
this is and so right now we're
it
talking
starts at
about
the
it.
top. That's what I keep saying. It starts at the top. These kids. First of all, who runs the house? The parents. The parents is the ones who do it. And until somebody break that cycle or break the chain, it goes on. That's the same thing as domestic abuse or anything
Thank you.
else. That you know what? That's what I
That's
was
all.
saying.
That's all I wanted to because we have to address the solutions.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about We're talking about years of trauma. A
But
lot of
it
us,
goes Africa. That goes right back to what I was saying. When you have that hush society, if nobody wants to talk about it, and it's shh, you don't talk about it. You know how many women been raped by their uncles and their aunts or their fathers, and same thing as the young men. It goes on, and then they'll cry and they'll say, "Hey, shh, you don't talk about it. It goes out to family." I mean, hell, look at what happened with what's her name, Monique, and her brother was raping him, and mom didn't want to say anything about it. It goes out. It goes on all the
and
time.
and I'm sure at one point it started out as, oh, they're experimenting, and then it became rape. You
I don't.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
No, because listen. If your siblings, whatever you're touching, you're exploring, you're trying to figure out yourself. But at what point does it come from? What point does it go from
but see, this is
experimentation to rape?
this is the
And
thing.
is this something
But
that you
this
you
is this is
internalize and it becomes that?
But this is why it goes back to what I'm saying. As a parent, somebody needs to talk. A parent needs to teach because with your sexual, your organs come, different hormones. You guys feel different things. But again, once again, is if never taught, and all this is new to you, and you don't know what that is, then okay, then it's experimentation because you don't know what's wrong. But if you're teaching and the parents teach you, hey, this is this, this is that, then you have a sense for it. The problem is uneducation. Okay, when we start learning about rape, we start learning about financial literacy, we start learning about how to condition yourself to have mental strength. Only way until you start working on you is when somebody takes accountability. And in our communities, there's been a lack of accountabilities. And even in across the world, when we talk about mental illness, there has been a lack of support that that it really should dawn on. It should be a lot more attention targeted to it. A lot of people do not want to talk about it. Being a parent of three kids, and all of them were special needs kids, okay? And that was one of the tough tasks of my life. I even had to take on a mother who had, dementia. So dealing with all this stuff, it was very, very tough. And what I realized in both instances, whether it was a person aging, whether it was a young person with mental health that just needed some help, the help is not there, and it is rare. It is sometimes there. Sometimes it may be there. It may be the place may be packed full. It's the need outweighs the supply. You have the demand for it. You can't get the same demand anywhere you go across the country, and only in certain places they have certain things for special needs kids. I mean, first of all, how do you know when a person's special needs? It's only through how their actions is. Person can look normal as all hell. They can look regular, and you have no idea. And that person may be suffering with some severe mental health issues. The
Right.
problem is that we do not talk enough about it. There is not a big enough discussion. We have normalized pain so much to the point where when young men will hurt themselves, and men take on depression because the world is thrown on us.
Hmm.
Women don't have the world thrown on y'all, especially when you're a black man. And I'm sorry. So I hear a lot of black women saying, "Oh no, we have a world," but I'm sorry, it's a little bit different. Yours is by default. You pick the dude sucked, blah blah blah. Or sometimes we may have it through parenting. That's the only way. It's a difference between women and men. Reason why I say as men, you're taught early not to cry, not to show your feelings. You'll whip if you do that. A man provides everything. And I mean, you look at it, even when you go out on a date, just in normal society, you go out right now on any weekend, there's ladies' night. Show me the guys' night. There's none. Okay, show me. Like I was saying, the celebration for Father's Day and everything. You don't really have as much celebration. We're not celebrated. We're tolerated, but we're not celebrated as much. And they say that. And I'm not talking about people on a personal level or what you do for your one man friend. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm saying as society as a whole. That's why there's so much depression. Even the young kids, the young boys, bad enough they have to get the courage to talk to a girl. Now they got to do this and do that, and it's like, man, I'm only 16 and 17. You got these young girls talking to old men, so these young boys have to compete with these old men. So what do some of these young men do? They go to the streets, try to, because they got to have a car, they got to have to blame the next person is having. All these things need to be discussed. There's not enough conversations in our households.
And everything that you're saying, all it does is it continues to perpetuate the problems and the systematic problems that contribute to mental illness. Now, in the 1970s, pioneering rappers such as Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five documented the harsh living conditions of social inequalities that could be damaging to mental health. Their 1982 hit, The Message, describes a world of poverty, deprivation, crime, and violence, which is also, listen, I remember growing up in New York City, and while I lived on a relatively good block,
Hmm.
I was cornered. The other four corners that I had to get to school or to go to my auntie's house, there were needles. There were needles outside on the
Yeah, you see
ground.
that all the
There was
time with
crack. There
pins.
were
Yeah.
homeless people.
In the '90s, the crack epidemic hit the inner cities hard, and I no one is I overstand it, being that I grew up in two different impoverished areas. In New York, it was in Soundview, which is you see them projects.
Right.
They're no joke. There's crack. That's pretty much New Jack City.
Soundview in itself is just
Yeah, New Jack City. Okay, and then I also grew up on the east side of Buffalo, and that was crazy, because Buffalo, it's like Buffalo. Imagine a smaller city, more country, but with the crime in New York, worse because it's
right,
smaller, it's condensed. So it's the
right,
same thing. I mean, guys from Griselda Record, half of them came from my crew upstate. So I seen all of that. The bottom line, the problem again, Africa, is addressing and talk. First, the only way you get to address a problem if you acknowledge it exists. There's not enough conversation. That goes back to the conversation. I'm not just meaning on a general level, but even with our homes, with our kids. Our most parents are taught, long as I feed you and put clothes on your back, I raised you. And there's much more to raising a child than just providing for them. I mean, providing just the monetary thing. They have
right,
mental needs as well. And if you do not teach your kid anything, and all you do is teach them that their value is what kind of coat they have, clothes, or their car, that's a poor life. These kids, they grow up. And it's because, again, generational curses. And it's like you said earlier, how do we do it? We break the chain. How do we break the chain? Start having discussions on it. And also acknowledging the research that's been done. A lot of times people don't even care. Like they'll sit around and they don't pay attention. Now, we'll watch Love and Hip Hop, but they ain't going to watch a documentary to teach you,
right,
what you can do, how to keep your mental health, how to lessen your stress, in your work environment, how to lessen your stress on children. We won't watch that, but we'll watch, I don't know, Leroy Hippie, whatever. I don't care less on Love and Hip Hop going against the next. And the reason, no disrespect to Love and Hip Hop, but I'm just saying that show, and you got these typical stereotypical shows that reinforces a fake view of what society is. And that goes to another topic of our conversation, how social media and how the media and mainstream media manipulates and causes so much pressure on people. And it's not just regular people, but entertainers, especially because they got the eye tiger on them all the time. And a person can make a false narrative that could destroy your life and you could be harassed. It's been happening lately. You've seen a lot of these things that go on. And then even if somebody lie and tarnish your identity, there's nothing you could do about it. The damage is done at that point. For example, how many NFL players and athletes have you seen who was accused of something? The girl was lying. They lost their contract. They lost their scholarship. They lost everything. And the girl went on like it was nothing. Hell, the lady from Emmett Till, she's still alive. And she had that little boy destroyed. And no one did anything about it. And it was a lie. Now you ask yourself, if she could even be racist, or she could be crazy too. And in my eyes, I think a lot of these people that are racist that perpetuate these things, they're a little off, because something have to be off your rocker for you to do things or hate anybody else that's done nothing to you.
right.
There's a lack of mental stability there. It's within itself. So when I hear people that's racist or super religious, I think there's a mental issue behind that, because sometimes people hide behind things and they have issues. How
And
many?
again,
Yeah,
these are learned behaviors that have been socialized as acceptable, and we don't delve further into it because these behaviors have been normalized. So we classify them under something else without taking a further look at them from a mental
we
standpoint.
put titles because we're scared. Let's be honest with you, Africa. Problem is, people don't want to admit that they have those issues. And that's where the first
So
and one of the biggest problems with mental health is people admitting. Hell, Trump, look at the president. This guy's clearly bipolar and has issues. But you know what? Everybody still let this guy go on. And we know
right.
he has issues.
Something's wrong with
giving you
him.
clear
Yeah,
signs. He's
he's a
giving you
little
clear signs of narcissistic behavior. God, he has so much mental aggression. I mean, there's so many red flags with this dude.
right. He
It's
was
horrible.
unhinged,
Of
to say the
course,
least. He was
he
unhinged.
was worse than
Now,
Bush. He made Bush look like made Bush look good. Now you know that's tough.
now, I had a conversation with someone, and it opened my eyes. I was speaking to someone that knew me for a long time,
Hmm.
and they told me. Now, mind you, I always thought that I was a happy person,
Hmm.
but they told me that I was always depressed. They were like, "I'm glad to see you. You look happier," and I was like, "Wow." Maybe I hide it better, but the reality is I suffer from depression like the entirety of my life,
Hmm.
and that is a result of other things that have happened.
It's sometimes a lot of times people don't realize depression comes on if you have go through some real a lot of trauma, whether it be through family or whether it can be something through other people with mental abuse. That comes on that depression and the stress of society today brings so much trauma. I mean, you got to have two or three jobs just to survive. Rent has went up.
Right,
The everyday survival needs have put trauma on. You can't get adequate health care. You feel what I'm saying? You get sick.
right,
Sometimes you can't. So it's so much that's adding to the equation nowadays. And I just think again, the biggest thing that it goes back for us, we really need to have more conversation and and then also we need to check on. I tell everybody, this is the truth, you guys. And I'm gonna say this, and I share a personal story. Rest in peace, my big bro, Eric Reed, dope pianist, dope dude, been in the industry for years. I had spoke to him maybe about a month ago, and I said, "Okay, man, I'm gonna get with you. I'll see you in a couple of weeks." 2 weeks go by. I'm planning on seeing this guy. He dies, and I say that because a lot of times when we don't check on people, and I'm not saying that anything happened to him, he died of natural causes, but the fact was, I was lucky. A lot of times we do not know when the next person is going to go. And then some people go through a real serious battle and you don't know about it because they're always smiling. So you always got to check
right.
on your friends. I can't tell you, I've had a friend that I went to a high school with that killed himself. And everybody thought he was cool. He was always happy. He ain't never do nothing to nobody. Really good dude. Boom, killed himself.
Hmm.
Look at Robin Williams. Nobody knew he was battling depression.
And he was always smiling. He was the life of the
Always.
party,
That's
and the,
exactly.
and that is the reality. The people that suffer from these things often are the life of the party, are always smiling. You would never know that anything is wrong with them.
I can tell you a sign because our listeners need to hear this. Guys, I want y'all to know one thing. The nicest and the sweetest people is usually the ones who've been through the meat grinder and they've went through the worst things. And the reason why they're super nice and sweet is because they don't want the pain and anguish to come to anybody else. So that's another way to check. So if you see somebody, somebody's super nice, always doing something, check on them too. Because this is, trust me, 24/7, 70 days a week, they're not always happy.
Right, right. Um, I remember, I had an incident back in the mid '90s,
Hmm.
and I had two CDs that I had two cassettes and a Walkman.
Hmm.
I was kicked out of my home for being pregnant, and the albums that I had was Me Against the World and the Set It Off album.
Hmm.
Those are the albums that got me through that dark time. Now, in the 1980s and the 1990s, mental health issues began to emerge more explicitly in lyrics, but often camouflaged as masculinity. Mainstream gangster rap portrayed machoism and discouraged weakness, while soft topics were still generally taboo. Hence, a vulnerability creeped into songs such as Mind Playing Tricks on Me by the Ghetto Boys, which depicted hallucination and delusions. Tupac's So Many Tears provided a glimpse into the emotional side of thug life by describing the signs of trauma and depression. Now, I lost so many, I'm weary, so
Hmm.
many tears, I'm suicidal, don't stand near me. My every move is calculated.
Calculated
Step,
step.
right.
Take me close to her.
And
Yeah, man.
And when you start thinking about these things, like, we don't see, we're just like, oh, that's lyricism, but we
Nah,
haven't
I'm
really
gonna tell you.
delved really deep
Can I tell you
into.
something? And when you say that song, no, I don't. I don't know. I beg to differ on that song because "Tears" is one of my favorite songs, and because I went through some of those. I went through the same. I go through the same feelings. One living in the impoverished area, and you watching your friends die.
Right,
Growing up. A lot. I hate to say it, but people in the suburban areas, they didn't have those issues. They didn't have to worry about coming home. Every day was a struggle. Leaving out the house was a struggle. Coming back home, going to the corner store was a struggle. Sometimes you had to because you had to be as a guy tough. You had to survive, and it's just like that song. It's like a juggle sometimes. It make me wonder how I keep that. That's why.
right,
That's why those lyrics hit hard home, and especially every hood, because every hood, anybody in any hood went through this. Anybody in any hood knows what it's like being a shorty, and then the other guys, you got some jerks that's older, but they bullies and they doing this stuff. Like you see a lot of time in the suburbs, there may be a few little bullies out there, but when you're in the hood, you're dealing with a gang of bullies because a lot of these
right,
kids is passing down. You heard that phrase, hurt people, hurt people. So a lot of these kids have abusive parents and different things. So they take it out on who? The people right in front of them.
right. Now, the relationship between mental health and masculinity is complex, as society sometimes promotes the narratives like strong men don't cry or his emotions got the best of him. Such negative views of men expressing their emotions are seen as signs of weakness. However, men under the age of 50 are at an increased risk of taking their own lives and
Because
are
we're
less
targeted.
likely to seek help when experiencing mental health
Because
crises.
they're targeted in its program. It's designed that way. Let's talk about it, Africa. Their program. The reason why I said that is because, first of all, who are the privatized prisons, being built for? And who are the most, vulnerable to subjection and suggestion? Young people. Okay, young people. Who they? Because they seeking family, they seeking brothers, they seeking love they didn't get at home. When you talk to the average dude, talk about his gang, he gonna say, "Well, that was my family." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the people who, I started hustling. Most of the people, they hustle. I hustle because this dude, he was my bro and he helped me out, da 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 da. Same thing, for a female, when she started, all type of things. It's all ways you can get in. But my point
Right.
is that a lot of times the streets, they invite you and it's an invitation. They, open arms, but the knife is
Mhm.
behind the back. You don't never see that knife coming.
I want to get to this because I think that it's important that we understand how we've been hearing these messages of depression and pain and PTSD, and
Yeah.
we've been taking them for great lyricism, but not checking on the people that are delivering these words, right?
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and a jarring inner conflict between anger and sadness is portrayed in Lil Wayne's song "Drop the World" featuring Eminem. Hate in my heart, love in my mind. I see nights full of pain, days are the same. You keep the sunshine, save me in the rain. I search but never find, hurt but never cry. And when it got too heavy, I put my burdens aside so I could pick up the world and drop it on his fucking head.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne once talked about accidentally shooting himself in his chest when he was young, but later revealed that in the lyrics and in an interview that it was an attempt to end his life.
Yeah. Uh,
And so many of us have these stories. And when I say so many of us, I mean just so many of us in the
because it's the
urban
pressures
community.
of life, man. The pressures of life. We go through way more trauma. Y'all talk about war. If you live in a hood, every day is a battlefield of war. So you dealing with people who dealing with real trauma. Whether it's abuse from their peers, abuse from their parents, abuse from society. It's all around the board. Because first of all, a lot of kids from the inner city, they're typecasted in their stereotype. They go to school. That teacher who's from the suburbs is talking about this. You so ghetto. You're this, you're that. And they never thought, come to think that guess what? These kids only doing what they've been taught. Okay? They're doing
Right,
that to learn it from somewhere. Then they go on to society. Oh, we can't talk to you. They don't and get to seek help. What they do is they throw you in a cage, teach you how to be more of an animal, and you come out more of an animal. And then the society asks you, why are you mad? It doesn't make sense.
I have a right to be mad. We have a right to be mad. There's so many things like, I as a child, I had no idea that I was abused. You understand what I'm saying?
Because it's normalized in urban societies. Abuse is normalized. You know why that's normalized? That's been taught to us since the beginning of slavery. They
I guess,
normalized brutality. We
right.
started beating our kids almost, but we said because we didn't kill them like Master Joan killed us, then we not really hurting them. So
No,
it was mental abuse.
yeah, it was definitely mental abuse, and again, I don't want to get into that,
Don't forget,
but
it's also programmable, baby. Ever since Willie Lynch, we've been programmed. So a
right,
lot of this is embedded it into our mind, and until we break this cycle, we think that it's genetic. A lot of things sometimes ain't genetic. Sometimes you can heal trauma by addressing it, by
right,
seeking mental help, by changing your diet, by also changing your mental diet, because you also have to watch what you intake inside your brain.
hmm
By being around the right people, protecting your peace, making sure you're calm, because trauma and all these illnesses, a lot of these, what you talk about, people who are mentally depressed. Some people who end up turning being bipolar, people who are born with schizophrenic. All these different things are brought on by mental trauma. Something had to snap, and then it messed up
now
the person's code and DNA. Seriously.
the rapper Logic partnered with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, releasing a song called 1-800-273-8255 about the suicide hotline caller getting support. When Logic performed the song at the Grammys alongside suicide survivors, calls to National Suicide Prevention line tripled, actually.
But how many? You know what? First of all, big shout out to Logic. He always comes with the juice on it. But there's so many different rappers. He talked about it. Hell, so, Eminem would stand. And the funny thing was, remember, a fan actually killed himself for Eminem. Did the same
Right.
thing with that letter. You also don't forget you got Juice World. You know
I
what
haven't,
I'm saying?
I haven't delved into that. There are countless amounts of that. But the song was actually titled "The Number for the Suicide Hotline," and as a result of that song, they tripled.
Because again, that was done in the popular eyes, and when
Right,
society accepts it, then that's normalized.
right,
Then
and
we have
that's what
to
I'm
open
saying.
that discussion and normalize it. When we talking about stuff, the suicide, these things have been going on because of trauma. A lot of people want to kill themselves because they feel like they got nothing to live for. You got little kids out here whose mamas, dads, you watching their mom, dad, be abused. Watching them abuse their siblings and abusing them. They go to school, the teachers abusing them. You little da 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 da. They go out society. They got bullies in society, other stuff. So a lot of that stress from whether you're a kid or you're adult, and if you're in a bad area, that really can destroy you. I know that growing up, I've seen so much. Like I had to seek mental help one time because I watched my friend, head get blown off right next to me. I'm coming home from the store. Boom! I felt something wet on me. I heard it, and I it ain't even
Ooh,
it wasn't even a gunshot. It was it's a silence one.
right.
And I turned around, had my man blood all over my shirt and jacket. And I was young. And
Wow.
so from there, that just made me hate like horror movies because that became real to me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Especially the ones you see like that. And so I just stayed away. And I couldn't watch that till I became an adult, till I actually faced it
So
and faced the trauma. And
how
that's just one
that
one
that's
of
what
the
that was
things.
what I wanted to ask. Like, how were you able to get past that? Because like having experienced somebody
Man,
do
it's
that.
so. Let me tell you something, and this is real. Y'all think I'm joking. Meditation is real. Self affirmations is real. Self love is real. And discussing and talking and finding someone you could talk to is the best, because you cannot hold and bottle up anything inside, because it's eventually gonna come out in some other way. Either aggression in your hangers, or you may end up start getting abused because you may start taking things in. That's how a lot of people be getting abused, because they was abused before and they think it's normal, so they start normalizing it. Bottom line is you have to seek help for yourself, and you have to acknowledge it. Stop. Don't be a victim. Be a victor. Don't let life happen to you. Happen to life. And what I mean by that is you have so much to live for. This is for that person that's listening right now that may have been contemplating, man. I can say I was you. I was right there with you. Everybody on this planet actually has a time where they feel like, especially when they become adults, or unless they just was victim, severely sheltered, and you know what I mean, and must have the best of the best of the best of the parents. But for the most part, if you're out in this society and you've been out there, There's been a time where you've had a depressing thought or two, maybe not kill yourself, but you got end up getting depressed and you started hurting yourself in other ways, eating bad diet, eating bad foods, doing things that's not healthy for you, not watching your weight, not exercising, getting to yourself, isolating yourself. All those things are not healthy for you. So again, seeking help, and I cannot emphasize the importance of being around genuine people. So if a person doesn't know your value, your worth, you leave them the hell alone, because people who don't value people tend to abuse them. So
Right.
only be around people that really care about you and that love you. And if they don't care about you, hell with them. And speak your piece. And I speak, and I told you I was going to talk about it, Africa. So let's go there. I went into a severe depression when my mother just passed like last year. Everybody know this. It's not a new thing. I took care of my mother for over 30 something years. And the reason why I'm speaking on this because this happened to so many people that I found out this was so normalized. I had a sibling that we never got along. She's very abusive. She did a whole lot of crap to me in the past. And, I'm not here to talk about that because she's done that to a lot of people. Because people who are narcissistic, they don't just tend to have one victim. They tend to have a whole trail of people that they didn't burnt and scorched. But the bottom line was what I was saying was it was so crazy because a lot of the abuse was normalized because you have some parents that allow other siblings to do something because that may be the favorite child or the smart one or whatever. And these people can get away with murder, and then parents. That's why tell
Literally.
parents. Yeah, I do, and I tell parents all the time. You can't. You got to treat everybody equal because it causes dissension. I raised all three of my boys equally. They got every equal toy. They got every equal thing. We all went out the same. They got every equal sandwich. No one got a sandwich or fried more than the next one. I mean, not fried literally, but you get my point. But it's I made sure that everyone felt loved because when you a parent raise somebody like that, you guys you're creating these monsters. Period. If somebody tell you something, like we was watching. I remember I talked to you the other day about the girl who traveled to overseas to Dubai, and she was having her hot girl moment and was wilding out over there and didn't look at the laws and regulations. And boom, she's came back, and you would think that she had learned the lesson. She didn't learn that at all. She's still saying, "Oh, it's their fault," da, 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 and was given a sketchy, thing where if you see the car it was a rental company over there, and the car was in a total wreck. And if you see like the video, surveillance video of her, it shows her going off, and she said, "Oh, I may have said a few words." No, first of all, women are in Dubai. They be beheading women for even standing up to their husbands. So you had the audacity to go to a whole other country and think that it's normal and normalize that abuse for the men over there. The men is like, no, we ain't the men in the States. You come over here with that crap. We about to show you who is. And she spent 3 months in jail or prison or whatever it was over there. But she didn't learn anything. Came back still the same. Why? Because the parents was trying to save that behavior. They should have been saying, hey, look, you're in a whole other country. They could chop your head off. They could put you in a suitcase and nothing we can do about it. Why are we over here? Mind your manners. But we're ignoring a lot of these signs. We know, you know how many women I know who sons is abusive and they don't say nothing because it's their son. But if it was the other way around, they'd be screaming bloody murder.
Right. And that again is correct the behavior that you see. So
Bingo.
before it becomes a part of society. This is what I stated at the very beginning when we talked about the experimentation. Now, another person that and it's so sad that there's so many people that have witnessed people being murdered and or committing suicide in front of them. Chance the Rapper talks about having a lot of dark days and currently dealing with PTSD as a result of having seen his friend killed in front of him at the age of 19.
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
give
know,
you another big one that we all know and love, DMX.
I was going to get
That
to
them
that.
demons followed him, all around. I mean, and all of our rappers, most of our big rappers had to have. That's how in hip hop has had a love affair with trauma. Okay, because the more
Hip hop was
traumatizing your
hip hop was
story is,
born out of trauma. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
born out of desperation. It was born out of
That's why I
poverty. It was
said
born out of that.
that's why we have a love affair with it. You understand what I'm saying? We've always had love. That's what I was saying. So when you talk about it, you see all the rappers is known by their stories, the trauma story, how bad Notorious Big, Tupac, how he grew up, how Eminem, 89 Mile, how he grew up, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, how he grew up, Juice World, Tyler the Creator, he's the only one there's different, I would say, that don't have it. But when you talk about like Kendrick Lamar, Juice WRLD, all the people, everybody that grew up in the hood knows. But the funny thing is, I can't even say that because I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's from Cali. That he's seen some things himself too. Hell, even the crazy part is, you would think kids who, and I'm a flip the whole switch with mental abuse from being for trauma from abusive trauma to other trauma from mental trauma. And one of the biggest mental trauma, who are the biggest family, the most known family, and kids are the most known who have them, and it's been highlighted of their mental issues, is the Smiths. Look at Jaden. I mean, you know how mental abuse the boy is getting picked on. People talk about your mama thought, your mom didn't have sex with your best friend, your pops tried to kiss you in the lips on national TV. That little boy went through hell, and ain't nobody looking on that boy's trauma.
Right. And the thing is that it happened, and that's the other part. Like, all of this stuff was happening in front
of
of
your
us.
eyes. I felt for him in each one when his pops trying to kiss him on the lip, and you clearly see he didn't want it. Think about it. What would make a little dude emancipate himself from his parents at that age? We say, oh, he was crazy. No, he was protecting his peace.
Right. And that's another thing. Like, people would think, they would assume that you're tweaking, or you're unhinged, or something's wrong, or you should just get over it. But people, and I keep saying this, like, stop telling me to get over it, because you don't know what it is that I'm dealing
You
with.
know what?
And I'm not going to tell you what I'm dealing with so you can attack me. The reason why we suffer from different addictions, and it's depending on what it is, because being a workaholic could be an addiction. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
Drinking, of course, we know is an addiction. Drugs is an addiction.
All of them are coping. All of them is coping mechanisms for some, babe.
Right.
And that's the whole big problem when you say that. The thing about it is, a lot of times, victim shaming, and most narcissists do that. And in your family, if it's been, you have a history of narcissistic abuse, I hate to say it, a lot of time it's generational. Okay, I watched my grandmother abuse my mom, to my mom started abusing, me and everybody else. And I'm not saying like physically, I'm talking mental abuse. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of women, like my mother, and I'm gonna say this for a lot of young men out there, a lot of young men have to face that trauma of the single mom trauma. When if it's been bitter, and the pops don't have an end of a good relationship, you look just like your father. A lot of these little kids, or the mother, some of these young girls get treated like that because the pops ain't crap, and he hates the mom, so he hates the girl. It's just, you see a lot of that in society. I just think that we need to start paying a lot more attention and stopping that cycle. And when people say that, oh, I did it because my mother did it, that's an excuse.
Yeah,
because my father, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. Everybody knows, and it's no disrespect. Rest in peace, Pops, but no disrespect. But it's the truth. It's the truth. My father wasn't a father. He was never there for me. Okay, and my mother hated him because of that. So she would say things about men and this and men that and men, and it was always a negative about men because of how my father was. My father was crap because he tried to lie and be like, oh, well, the reason why I wasn't father was because I didn't have a father. You know what it taught me? It either breaks you or make you. Okay,
right.
It didn't break me, and what it did for me was I had that compassion in my heart after dealing with being a young man growing up without no father. I was like, I'm gonna make sure ain't no young brother that I can help is gonna go through it. Whether I'm mentoring them, or just like when I raised my nephews, I made sure that they didn't go through none of the stuff I went through, because you're supposed to break the cycle somewhere. You know what I mean?
I have a question for you. As I know that you raised your nephews,
Mm-hmm.
but is the experience, or did the experience with your mother impact your decision, one, not to get married, and two, not to have children?
I would say it didn't impact me for having children. What made me not want to have children was that I didn't want to have a kid. At the time I was in my career, I was a little very selfish in my career, I ain't gonna lie to you, and I didn't want no kid or anything impacting, because I knew the type of father I would be. I wanted to be the father to be there, stay there, pack the lunch. I wanted to be the best dad I can be, because I wanted to prove them wrong and break the cycle. You feel what I'm saying? Because there was a whole chain in my family. A lot of the dudes, even when they had kids, they barely took care of their kids. They was out running the streets, and I was not going to be that stereotype. And the crazy part was the emphasis when it came to the women in my household. A lot of support for them in college and being there, but for us men, it was none of that. You follow what I'm saying? So it was double
Mhm.
standard. It was a double standard.
Mhm.
And a lot of them, that's why you hear in hip hop, daddy's little girl. But when you hear a lot of these dudes talk, you don't hear too many dudes talking about their pops unless you have those step pops and those other guys that come in who not pops with an OG that taught him. For example, Shaquille O'Neal, his stepdaddy, he knew his biological wouldn't bother. You know, he even made a song about it, and that was a big deal for him. Tupac, when he talked about it, so many people. So this is even with Big, so many people deal with that same issue. And I think again, discussion. It has to start with a discussion somewhere, being
Right.
acknowledging, and you have to know that guess what, you are not alone.
You
I,
are not
yeah,
alone.
I want
Right.
to know. Michael made this song and it's real and it's funny because who reminds you of Michael right now? Chris Brown. Chris Brown's and look, he almost went to the same thing. He went,
Listen, that's a part of, Chris Brown suffers from bipolarism. He was diagnosed with bipolarism and depression. And a lot of these things go unchecked. And again, there's so many environmental influences that
well,
cause these.
it's a recipe for disaster because when you get somebody that young and that famous, first of all, people just agree with anything they say because you got the fan worship. You know what I mean? Which
Right,
is toxic to these people because you're giving them a different complex and they get the God complex and they start doing things. And then when you ready to get at them, like, oh no,
yeah,
I
you want
thought
to
you agree with it.
reprimand them,
Yeah,
and then yeah.
yeah, but because we say our entertainment is good entertainment. There's no bad press.
Right,
No, it is.
right,
It is.
right, right,
So it's crazy. That's why I wanted to chime in on that. Like I said, Michael, both of them blew up too fast, which isolate them because you think that because a person is popular that they're happy. No, man, because guess what? People in the industry, when you're in the industry, you don't know if somebody like you for you or like you for your
right.
talent or who you are. And
And
I know I've experienced it. I'm pretty sure you've experienced it. A lot of people, and I mean that's the crazy part when you get to people and you trying to have genuine friends and they only because you're this person or you this persona outside.
right.
That's not love. That's crazy.
That's interesting. And we ask for it, We ask for it. We want to be able to share our talents and
Yeah, but we're
do
not
well.
asking for that.
But
I'm gonna say that we're not asking for mental abuse though. So I had to say that
yeah, but
because
we we but but
there's a
but
lot.
it comes
Hold up.
with it.
Let me. No, I'm gonna say that. The reason why I say that, nope, to a certain degree, people remember that we are people like you too. Okay,
Right,
so disrespecting us, we're gonna react the same way you react. Breaking our personal space, we're gonna do it the same way. There's no thing, and we do acknowledge who we are. I know who I am. First of all, I don't. I always think that's one of my things. My manager always gets on me about. First of all, I don't be thinking I'm anybody because I'm a regular dude. You may think that different. Everybody look at it, but when we look at ourselves, that's how we are. That's how me and you
yeah,
are.
we normal.
We know not, but see, not everybody in the industry like that though. Africa, you know that it's a lot of people that take on a persona. But the difference was this: I always had an outgoing personality, so I was always popular
Right,
before the industry. So I don't need to be Hollywood famous. I was hood famous before I was Hollywood famous. So I
right.
could care less about that persona. And I tell you, as a person that grew up popular, there's still always a persona with you because people see you as one way, especially when you have talents. And that's another thing. You know how much hate is started from talents and how people. I have a sibling. The sibling I was talking about, one of the things was mad about because I had different talents. Some people are born with it and gifted, some people don't. Like, for example, Chris Brown, that boy got talent oozing out of him. He's a phenomenal writer, phenomenal painter, phenomenal actor. The boy can a dancer, singer. He's uber talent, and people think that because he's talented, that means his mental perception, everything gonna be straight. And they be having the
Right.
worst issues. Look at Taraji P. Henson. She told you she dealt with that. She battles with that.
Hmm.
And she's one of the most successful actresses out there.
Right.
Tyrese. You see up in there, Will Smith. I mean, Lord, hell, even Wesley Snipes talked about it. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, look at what happened to Martin Lawrence.
Right.
When he was in the middle of the street, they said he was crazy, and he wasn't because there was so much things going on. Look at Doja Cat. I mean, the list goes
Breakdown.
on.
They
It's
have breakdowns.
we're human. So the bottom line is a discussion needs to be had, and we need to start showing love. We've become such a hard society. We don't love. There's no more community. There's no more people. And then when you living like that, and it's a constant state of protection, being an aggressor, you always got to protect yourself. Then guess what, man? You get subjected to more harm than good, and mentally, it's too much on a person.
Now, when we think about hip hop artists, we don't usually think about anxious or depressed rappers. Some artists have a reputation as being tough and invulnerable, but some rap stars are changing the perception and helping to reduce the stigma by writing songs about mental health. In fact, a recent study found that the number of rap songs about mental illness has more than doubled.
But it doubled because a lot of these people grew up in traumatic areas. So
Right,
they're doing what hip hop does. To tell you, there's even a rap that I forget the name of his called, but it's with Extension and all those guys. The same thing where they rap, where they're actually talking about those things. With sad rap, that's what's called sad rap.
right. It's called sad
I
rap.
never
It's a
even
new
heard.
genre.
It's a new genre, and my point is
Right,
because what they're doing is telling you things that they deal with is depression, and it's all things that they wish they had help with, wish they had a father, wish they had a
right,
mother, wish they had someone to love them, wish someone gave them a hug, wish someone told them they loved them, wish somebody took them seriously, wish someone stopped, making lies about. It's so much going on, and again, it starts with the conversation. Your child talk to you and say that they need to talk. Stop, please. Your friend talk to you. Stop, please. You never know what life or whose life you're going to save. I think it's serious,
right.
and we have to start caring. Oh man, and stop blowing things off. Because one day you may blow somebody off, and they may blow their head off.
You know, I had made a decision. I had made a decision in my life to do something to protect my daughter from the type of experiences that I had,
Hmm.
and my sister, whom I also raised,
Hmm.
I had her since she was 14, and she was the one that created the biggest, I think, executed the biggest deception ever in my life.
Well, family
But,
does that.
but,
That's. I just want to say that's common to in a lot of families. That's why a lot of you see a lot of depression going on because there's a lot of scapegoating and people victim blaming, and what happens is that victim get isolated from the family, especially if you're not
right.
that. What happened because that narcissist, when he's out there
And that
ghostlighting,
was that. That was
yeah,
just
yeah. What
definitely
about
that
say?
was definitely narcissism.
Yeah, of course. Well, listen. My sister was the queen of it. So what she would do is she need to get her flying monkeys. So she have to talk to anybody that they feel. That's why I said you need to know how to
Right,
describe your vibe. Because if anybody's going to believe anything about you, then they truly don't love you. I mean, let's just
right,
face it. If I could come and say, yeah, somebody said this, oh, Africa, oh, hell no, da da da, oh yeah, and I just flip on Africa or flip on my friends, then that shows my core value or my essence of who I am as a man, as a person. When people come to me, a real person, I want y'all to know this. And this is what I mean, Stan, because you know how today I hate to say it, but this society, their versions of real ain't our versions of real Africa. You know what I'm saying? They're like,
right,
oh, that's just that person. No bull crap. When somebody say that, run for the hills. Because if they're doing it to you and say, oh, I just do that because that's bull crap. They do that because you let them. I'm going to say
right,
this as a victim and a survivor, not a victim. God forgive me, survivor of narcissistic abuse. I know this all too well firsthand. When I lost my mom, my sister went around telling my family, doing this, doing that, did the most, even made groups on Facebook, other stuff. I never got a chance to tell my side of the story. Never spoke on it. Because I was just like, I was so hurt that some of the family would even believe half the crap that was spewing out of her mouth. And then after they realized that she was lying, they come back around, of course, try to, front and blah, blah, blah. But now there's a barrier. We're not the
right,
same anymore because you've already showed me who you truly are. And when you show me who you are, I got to believe it. Problem is because these people are becoming victims, no longer victors. And the reason why you're
right,
becoming victims is because we're falling for, like you said earlier, oh, that's your cousin. Oh, that's your family. Oh, blood is thicker than water. Oh, bull crap. Blood may
right,
be thicker than water, but water's much clearer. The end.
right,
um, what I went through with my sister, Africa, when my sister lied about this stuff and had everybody doing it, and I'm sitting up here, they will these. These narcissists are so good that they'll have you doubting your own self. Like, wait a minute, did I say that? Did I do that? Because they know how to manipulate you, and they use your feelings and your attachments to these situations as a weapon. They weaponize it against you. My sister worked for social services and used her knowledge against me, and used the system and weaponized the system that was supposed to work for me against me, and made false reports and everything. I could sue her right now. Point is that this is what they do, Africa. They isolate you from any support system. That's why most people who are narcissists, they get you away from your friends, away from your
Right.
own family, away from anybody that love you or that has an opinion other than theirs. Now
And
the
this
friends that
includes
are
anybody
destroying
that
you,
is an abuser.
yeah,
I
but
mean, not just narcissist, but an abuser.
what the whole point is, abuser is narcissist. Africa, it's the same. It's in one. An abuser is a narcissist. Most traits of a narcissist is abusive behavior. Okay,
Right.
mentally, physically, emotionally, emotionally. That they do that. They prey on your stuff, just like your sister. She preyed on your weaknesses, and that's the same point I was making when you thought I was being long-winded. That's what they do. They prey on you. They victimize you. They isolate you, and then they attack. They're not going to attack you when you're in a safe environment. They're not going to attack you if you have support. They're not going to attack you if you have enough love and self-esteem for yourself. So they catch you at the most vulnerable moment. They catch you when you
Right.
don't have no people with you, at
Right.
vulnerable space, vulnerable time too, when you maybe have your economics is not maybe up to par. You may be laid off or off a job or some situation that happened. You feel what I'm saying? They catch you at the most vulnerable time. That's what they do. Because first, what they do is they love bomb you. You think they love you? Oh,
Hmm.
they give you gifts. They'll say something. They'll say, "Oh, you nice," or they'll do something that's gonna play on you. You say, "Okay, cool." Then they'll get you into a routine. Then, bam, out of nowhere. That's what they do. So that's why we have to understand when people listening, look at these signs. So if you hear these signs, see these signs, it's a red flag. Know the hell be out of there. Know to get the hell out. Know to say, hey, enough is enough. Know to run. And for you ladies out there, stop saying, oh, I'm going to change him if he hits you one time. If he
It's
show
over.
you, it's a wrap. Get the hell out. To my fellas out there, shorty too, if she's abusive and she say, oh, I'm just I'm suffering from this and this person, and they abuse you, get the hell out. To
Yeah.
anybody out there, if they show you any size of those narcissistic flags, and it's, if for all those who need help, please look at Dr. Romney. She's online YouTuber, but she's actually clinically licensed physician who's been working in the field, wrote award-winning author, and helped out a bunch of people. She's been seen on Oprah and a whole lot of other people. But she will show you the different signs and show you what to do afterwards. There's a bunch of them. But you guys need to please look up the signs, the 8 signs or the 10 signs or 15 signs of narcissistic abuse, because that's something that most of these people that we're talking about, that's where most of the trauma and depression stems from.
Right.
Either being abused by somebody with this or suffering with an illness yourself. Either
Exactly.
way, you need to. And if you are a person who didn't know, because a lot of times these people who become abusive didn't know how to handle their abuse. R. Kelly didn't know how to handle his abuse, so he
And
he
that
twisted
is
off. Because what these abusers do is they single you out. It goes back after. This is what I'm saying. So for people that's listening, it is vitally important for you not to hold it within yourself, not to think you crazy, not to blame yourself. Don't get into depression and get by yourself, because that's what they want you to do. That is the whole
right.
objective. So you can feel depressed, you can feel isolated, you can feel alone, you can feel unloved, you can feel unworth, and then they win. How you get them
Right.
beat them at their home game is you don't take the isolation. You don't listen to the right anymore. And then you know what? Sometimes family pushes that behavior because, again, Africa, and I don't mean to go into your pride to your business, but my sister on the outside looked like the perfect person, but man, listen, I'm not even about to spew her crap on air,
Right.
but I'm
Right.
gonna say this, that everything glitters ain't gold. And a lot of times people look at people's value because they got a nice car. How many people have you seen who's been abusive who are filthy rich and they killing their
Right.
wives and doing all type of crazy stuff because they suffer from mental abuse?
Now we are short on time, so
Sure.
I want to cover the medical definitions of these various disorders. Right.
Hmm.
Um, What is PTSD? Is considered post-traumatic stress, changes the brain pathways which are reinforced by repeated exposure. Understand how our understand how a disorder which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing terrifying events. The condition may last months, years, with triggers that can bring back memories of trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. Symptoms may include nightmares or unwanted memories of trauma, avoidance of situations that bring back memories of trauma, heightened reactions, anxiety, or depressed modes. Treatment includes different types of trauma force psychotherapy as well as medication to manage symptoms. I'm not living medicated, okay? Um here's some of the here are some of the symptoms: behavioral irritability, hostility, hypervigilance, self-defense behaviors, or social isolation. Psychological: flashbacks, fear, severe anxiety or mistrust. Mood: loss of interest and pleasure in activities, guilt or loneliness. Sleep: insomnia or nightmares. Also common: emotional detachment and unwanted thoughts. All right, that is post traumatic stress. Bipolar disorder, also called manic depression, a disorder associated with episodes of mood swings ranging from depressive lows to manic highs. The exact cause of bipolar disorder isn't known, but is a combination of genetics, environments, and altered brain structure and chemistry may play a role.
But it's
Manic episodes may include symptoms such as high energy, reduced need for sleep, loss of touch of reality, depressive
sensory.
episodes. Um, Many include symptoms such as low energy, low motivation, loss of interest in daily activities. Mood episodes last days to months and at times may also be associated with suicidal thoughts. Treatment is usually lifelong and often involves a combination of
you're
medication
you're,
and
you're giving it you're
psychotherapy.
giving a doctor's advice for it, and I mean I hear you, but the bottom line is honestly is first of all, if you really want to attack mental health, because you go to a doctor, but doctors are paid to give you temporary help. Okay, they're not paid to actually cure.
Let me explain what some of the experiences are, because people need to identify they might be going through these things and have no idea that they may be suffering from an actual clinical episode, right? Mental issue.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's always different. I'm just saying because it's different for each person, So the symptoms there's going to range for wide variety, and I hear what you're saying. But the biggest thing is if you feel something off and you know it, and you see it yourself, stop second guessing. Sometimes we know something off, just like when we know we're eating something bad for us. We still do it anyway because it tastes good. You know, Bottom line is again when you feel depressed, if you know you're ready to kill, let's be honest, because these are the cases I'm trying to deal with. Not just anybody who just want to be. I'm talking about people who going through something right now, who ready to kill themselves, who's feeling super depressed, who's blame themselves, who think that they're alone and no one wants them and no one loves them. Again, a lot of that goes from mental abuse, and you have to speak to somebody. Reason why majority of people killing themselves and going through is because they're not talking to somebody. You can have as many symptoms if you want, but if you do not go see about it, you do not discuss it, you do not talk, because you may think it's normal. I know people who look at the hoarders, the show hoarders. Most of them was telling you that's normal. Their houses are normal and they were holding on to the garbage and junk in their home because they had a lost one. They lost a father, a mother, grandfather, whoever, and that having the belongings gave them a sense of there. And especially if you don't have a big family and you come to a small family, and you may not have no siblings, and then your mom and father die or everything going, it's being alone is what really causes you to go through the most anxiety, and also being around the wrong company. So it's like a combination of both. If you're by yourself, isolated, or if you're surrounded by people, it's a toxic environment. Both of those things can tear up you mentally. As well as, I hate to say it too, we got to watch what we eat too. It's in our diet, it's in our food.
People may experience mood swings, sadness, elevated moods, anger, anxiety, empathy, apprehension, euphoria, general discontent, guilt, hopelessness, loss of interest, or loss of interest in pleasure and activities, behavioral or irritability, risk taking behaviors, disorganized behavior, aggression, crying, excessive desire for sex, hyperactivity, impulsiveness, and self harm. Unwanted thoughts, delusion, lack of concentration, racing thoughts, slowness in activity, or false belief of superiority. Psychological, depression, manic episodes, agitation, depression, or paranoia, sleep, difficulty falling asleep or excessive sleepiness, whole body fatigue and restlessness, weight loss or weight gain, also accompanied by rapid and frantic speaking. So, those are some of the symptoms that you may experience if you are suffering from bipolar disorder. There are several other types of mental health issues that you know, but all of them result in having a lack for something or creating impulsive desires, not impulsive, addictive behaviors. If you start to feel that you're doing something excessively, you may want to fall back and figure out what it is that is triggering this behavior and deal with that. That is how you can get it to a head. But like V said, go ahead and have a conversation with someone that you trust. And if you don't trust anybody, there are helplines. There are helplines. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end of our show. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Just remember, September 10th is Suicide Prevention Day. And if you have friends that suffer from depression and or are the life of the party, make sure that you're checking on them. V,
I'm here. I would just say, at the end of the day, bottom line, the reason why I was saying the terminologies, I hear what you're saying, but what people is, a lot of people, before they even acknowledge, it's just like a chemical dependency or, somebody who's suffering from, any other type of addiction. You have to want to seek the help first. It does not matter what you have to want and see it, because the problem is that we see these behaviors, and a lot of people have society have normalized crazy ass behaviors as well. So until we actually see something and acknowledge it, it's going to continue to happen. And the biggest thing, the only way we can acknowledge stuff is through conversation. If no one's talking about it, if you don't have a discussion, you don't discuss it with nobody sees it, it's going to perpetuate. And then the reason why I was saying that is because a lot of these kids who suffer from these things, I suffer from a lot of traumatic experiences because their parents and elders had normalized that behavior. Oh, well, that's how he is, or that's how she is, or whatever. And it's normalized it. Come on, let's think about it. R. Kelly, all those women, you mean to tell me with all the bodyguards, bouncers, security, PR, everybody, and no one stood up to him about that behavior? Normalized. So somebody's
right.
watching these things happen. These, when you go to school, it's normalized. You got that one bully. He beat up the whole classroom, and the whole class can beat this bully, but we're all scared of that one person because it's been normalized.
All right, so let's not normalize this behavior. This has been Being Africa Allah right here on the Discover Music channel by PlayMas.Today. Tell a friend to tell a friend,
No
subscribe to the
doubt.
vibe.
No doubt. You heard the vibe, and it's the official whistle. You heard it. And I would say this too. Don't forget to follow me on all social media at It's My Vibes. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because at the end of the day, we gotta pay to play so we can keep bringing this dope content your way. So y'all stay official. You heard the whistle. I'm out here.